prop it up. And you know, the lottery's not the problem. The problem's the Board of Regents. But you know, we've got to figure out some way to rein in this incredible competition between our schools that they're building, spending millions and millions of dollars a year on you know, buildings, and our kids are kind of getting shortchanged in the deal, and a lot of us can't afford to send their kids to college. Well, I'm out of that game. My son graduates from KSU in May. Hopefully, he's doing student teaching this year at Little River Elementary right here in Cherokee County, and so I don't have a kid in college anymore. Hopefully, after that. So, but I think for the future, we've got to fix this, or we're going to be. It's just going to get worse. Thank you.
Representative from the 21st District, Mr. Scott Turner, addresses for next item.
I think we might be going in reverse order by age or something. That's weird. Okay. I turned 40 next week.
You realize what you just said about me?
I might have actually realized what I was saying when I said that. I don't know.
Considering we're the same age, so maybe it's just
I'm clearly the oldest. Good morning. I'm so glad to be here amongst the rational human beings that make up Cherokee County, as opposed to being down there at the Gold Dome. And I cannot mean that more. It is great to be here this morning. I'm thankful for Mandy allowing us to be in the 23rd House District today, even though I make bad jokes about age. I am working on a couple of things, one of which is a holdover from last year, and it's caused a little bit of a stir. And we are blessed here in Cherokee County, first and foremost, to have a tax commissioner that has a well-adjusted sense of fairness and justice. And a couple years ago, she came to Representative Caldwell and I with this scenario, and it kind of broke both of our hearts. And basically what had happened was there was a family that owned a property. It was $100,000 paid off, free and clear property. The gentleman that owned it was elderly. He went to the hospital. He passed away in the hospital. He did not have his will in order. He did not have any. He had 5 or 6 children. And they began to fight over what was going to happen to that property. And for 2 years, they did not pay the property tax on that property. So around $2,500 to $3,000 worth of back taxes get accumulated over a couple of years. And per law, as tax commissioner, she has to go out and levy that property for tax sale. Was not able to directly contact any of the family owners. Puts a sign in the yard. She does this herself. She takes this obligation very seriously. She performs this task herself. She places the sign, notice of levy for tax sale. It goes to the courthouse steps. There were 2 entities that bid up this property at the tax sale. It went up to $120,000, 20% over fair market value. That's important for a couple different reasons. When the family realized what was happening, it locked them out of being able to go secure financing for that property. Ordinarily, you would be able to say, okay, well, if I have a $100,000 house, if you're going to buy it at a tax sale for $120,000, you can take your tax proceeds, a premium on top of that, and any other debts would get paid off. And then the excess funds, in that case, would have been around $110,000 when all was said and done. But these 2 entities that bid up that house to $120,000 had a plan. And that plan involved some medical bills from when that gentleman was in the hospital. They found a $300 outstanding medical bill. They went and filed a lien before they went to tax sale with it. They had gone out and run a credit report. They read these legal ads. They ran a credit report on this property owner that had passed away. They found his bad debts. They went and bought them for 30 cents on the dollar. It cost them $30 to get a $300 medical lien from when this man had passed away. That small $300 lien created what was called a super lien status. The day after the tax sale, they bought that house on the courthouse steps. They ran to the courthouse, they filed this lien against that property, and they immediately moved into foreclosure proceedings. They locked the family out, the original property owners, out of the house, out of the excess funds. They walked away with everything for an investment of less than $10,000. So for $10,000, we have this loophole. You can go get $120,000 or $100,000 property, the excess funds and everything else, and you can completely forget about the original property owner. I think the people who do this, I do not understand how they fall asleep at night. I think they're complete and total scumbags, and we need to put them out of business. So HB 81 is the bill that would do that. We had a lot of debate. The people who do this for a living came and actually testified. They showed their face in committee. It was interesting because I did get a chance in a Ways and Means hearing on that bill to tell them that they were scumbags, because they are. And I'm thankful to Sonia Little for bringing that to our attention, because this is happening all around our state. Now here in Cherokee County, Sonia fights them in court, so she makes them work for it. So that it's less, we are less of a desirable place for that to happen here. She's working to protect the taxpayers and property owners of Cherokee County. So that's HB 81. The second bill that I've introduced this year is HB 710, which is the Georgia ABLE Act. For those who know my background and my family, disabilities are an issue that I'm passionate about working on in a way that we can be as conservative as possible. And so last year, actually at the end of 2014, Congress, after 9 years of debate, finally passed what was called the Federal ABLE Act, Enabling a Better Life Experience Act. And it basically, who here is familiar with the College 529 Savings Plan? Everybody's heard of that, right? It expanded the 529 tax code to allow for disabled individuals to save for their own care in the same manner. And that does a couple different things. It also doesn't put at risk their means-tested supports. So at the federal level, it's $14,000. HB 710 would allow for an additional $2,000. It creates that program so that disabled people in Georgia can begin saving money for their own care in that same type of tax advantage account as you would for a college savings plan. But the number of things you can spend that money on are fairly wide and broad, everything from education to housing to specialized housing to education, transportation, treatments, medications, equipment that would help a disabled person live a better life. So those are two pieces of legislation that I'm working on specifically that I'm carrying. I am a sponsor on Representative Al Peak's medical marijuana bill, HB 722. I'm also a sponsor of the Religious Freedom Restoration Act that was held over from last year and is Sam Teasley's version of that bill. And I think we used the word Mary Margaret's bill, but I don't know if you all know who Mary Margaret is. Mary Margaret is a Democratic representative, thank you, that introduced this week an assault weapons confiscation bill where GBI agents would actually go into your house and take your weapons from you and make it a felony for you to own them.
Magazine clips also.
Yeah, so that's that. So I know we kept saying Mary Margaret's bill earlier. That's what that bill would do. I had a very, very cordial conversation with her on the House where I asked her in so many words, "What the heck are you thinking?" And what she said was that she does not see the world the way that we do. She does not believe that law-abiding citizens can carry a weapon and be responsible. She sees people that do that as dangerous. I could not disagree with her more. Those are all her words, not mine. And I thanked her for the opportunity to explain to people that I'm strong on the Second Amendment, because I started getting a flood of messages, phone calls, text messages from my friends that know where I stand on the Second Amendment. I was getting those calls, and it was like, thank you, Mary Margaret. I get to tell everybody how strong I am on protecting constitutional rights. I really appreciate that. It was like, I don't know, 731? Yeah, HB 731. It is, and by the way, it is going absolutely nowhere. Speaker David Ralston came out and said, we're not going to waste our time on a piece of trash like that. So that's what I'm working on this year. I appreciate the opportunity to serve you. This is not a job that that belongs to me. It belongs to you. And I never, ever, ever forget that I'm here to represent your values, and I appreciate the opportunity to do that. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Representative Turner. And the last representative, we're going to have Representative Michael Caldwell, who has known all the bill numbers, and I'll tell you. Michael was in my economics class at KSU, and he let me copy his notes before he was ever an elected official, and his notes were impeccable. And I'm just very thankful for that still, because I would have failed that class without him. So thank you, Michael. I'm glad you're
Well, thank you, Michael. Real quick, we had a few people saying that they had a little bit of trouble hearing.
Okay,
And,
and can everybody hear me, or do I need to, can you hear me okay? If you have any trouble, go like this, and I'll pick up the microphone, otherwise
Okay.
I walk around, so. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
I think I know everybody in the room. For anybody who doesn't know me, my name is Michael Caldwell. I represent the best district in Georgia. I represent the 20th district, which is down in Town Lake. It's Town Lake Woodstock, south end of Sixes Road. Anybody here from that area? All right, well, thank you. You're also the best constituents of Georgia. The rest of you are pretty good. Guys, good morning. It's great to be here. To Scott's point, I will take any day in Cherokee County over a day at the Gold Dome. It's great to be home with you guys, be back with people who think similarly and believe similarly. Want to talk to you guys a little bit about what we're working on. I do want to say thank you to Senator Albers for touching on why it's so important and why we should be proud of Georgia. We take for granted, I think, the climate that we get to live in. We're in one of the reddest counties and one of the reddest states in the union. We're very lucky to get to live near other conservatives. You go around the country, you don't quite get that. For my day job, I travel for a living. I was on 142 planes last year. So I get to go to all kinds of different climates. Being the 5th fastest growing state in the union, being the third, the number 1 state for business for the 3rd year in a row means something. It means something that we beat Texas for the number 1 state to do business. And that brings me into the first thing I'm working on this year that I get really passionate about. We are the number 1 state to do business, unless you're in a single business. And before I tell you what it is, who here thinks that you ought to be able to buy a suit directly from a tailor? Now, you may buy it from Macy's or a department store, right? But do you think that the government ought to tell you you can't buy it from the tailor? No, right? It's crazy. Who thinks you ought to be able to buy your shoes where they make shoes, right? Absolutely. Government should not be playing a role in where you buy them. Did you know you can buy wine at a winery here in this state?
Yeah.
Government says that's fine, right? Did you know we're one of only 2 states in the country you cannot buy beer in a brewery? Now, before you look at me and go, okay, great, the young guy's the beer guy, right? Understand, I'm not a big beer guy. Let me ask, who here does not buy beer? Who does not drink beer? Okay, you guys are the ones I want to talk to for a minute, okay? I want to tell you why this issue matters to you, all right? We are one of 2 states in the union that you can't buy a beer in a brewery. We are argued as being the 49th state in the country to do business as a brewer. I'm going to argue we're 50th. And here's why this issue is interesting to me. You guys all watched how I campaigned. You watched the things I talked about in my campaign. I was a big ethics, a big accountability and government guy, right? This issue is not a cultural issue. It's not a Bible Belt issue. It's not why we're behind Alabama. It's not why we're behind South Carolina. This is not an infrastructure issue. We're the number 1 state in the union to do business. We have a fantastic state to come start any kind of business, unless it's this. This issue is a lobbying issue. The largest lobby in the state of Georgia are the wholesalers, the distributors for beer. There are 13 families that control all beer distribution in the state of Georgia, and that is state mandated. Guys, it got set up just after Prohibition. Originally, the idea was to try to protect them from the Al Capones who own the big breweries. And in reality, what it's done is set up a wholesale distribution that is an effective monopoly. You cannot go become a distributor in Georgia anymore. If a brewery signs up with a distributor, they cannot stop selling through that distributor ever. It is easier to get a divorce than to break your beer distribution contract. It is so hard, in fact, there was a brewery in Georgia that had a distributor set up with them. That distributor called them and said, hey, we're no longer distributing beer. Brewery said, that's great, just release us so we can sign up with somebody else. They go, oh, no, we're not doing that. Brewery went out of business. That is how bad it's gotten in Georgia to try to do business as a brewery because the state has set up a monopoly in the distribution network. Guys, I argue we're not 49th, we're 50th to do business as a brewery because number 50 right now is Mississippi. They're a lot smaller state. It's cheaper to buy legislators. So if you wanted to change the laws in Mississippi, it'd be easier than to do it here. So we've got a really serious issue. Here's why it matters to those of you who don't drink beer. If we got to middle of the pack beer laws in this state, okay? Don't go lead the way nationwide. We're just going to get middle of the pack. We are talking about enough jobs that we could decrease within a year the unemployment rate in Georgia from 5.6% to 5.3% off of direct brewery jobs. Okay, not indirect, not retail growth, not the direct jobs within brewery growth. We could decrease our unemployment rate by 1/3%. Imagine if we got every legislator in the Capitol to take on an issue where we could decrease the unemployment rate 1/3%. Would that be a win? We'd have some major negative unemployment, right? This is an issue that's important to me, not because of beer, but because we can take a real fight on the unemployment rate here in this state. And I'm sick and tired of saying, yes, we're #1 state to do business, unless your business is beer, unless you're a brewer, unless you're in this industry. We need to be the #1 state to do business. It's crazy that we're trailing on this, and it's absolutely ludicrous to me that we let ourselves trail for no reason other than the right people get bought. It's wrong. It's not how government's supposed to work. So, taking on that issue, don't have a bill number yet. It's getting filed on
And
Wednesday.
let me jump in real quick and just say that I do not buy beer, I don't drink beer, but I'm a huge supporter of this bill.
Wes was on my list of will I win West.
It's a free enterprise issue.
It's a really important free enterprise issue, guys. So that bill's getting dropped on Wednesday, working with Chairman Stevens of the Economic Development Committee, a committee that I serve on, to go knock that out. It started in the Senate last year. I won't go through all the details. If you'd like, I do a weekly coffee every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. at Copper Coin. We talk about this issue almost every week because it's one that's been really interesting. And one of the big problems we ran into this year is that the state last year, we passed a law called the Beer Jobs Bill to try to set it up so that you couldn't buy beer, but you could buy a tour and get beer. The Department of Revenue came in and effectively rewrote the law. Decided, no, we're not going to follow the law, we're going to issue rules so that they can't do that. And so the brewers have run into a big problem. I'll tell you honestly, I'm thankful they did it because it gave us an opportunity to bring real reform before the legislature again. So please, if I'm not your legislator, let your legislators know, although we've got a lot of friends up here, so you're probably in good shape, but let your other friends around Georgia know they need to call their legislators and get this moving. The other issue that I'll talk to you about real quick, and then I'm going to wrap up because I know that took more of my 5 minutes than I probably should have taken. Last year I got to carry and pass what we named the J. Calvin Hill Jr. Act. It's named after Representative Hill, who lived here in Cherokee County. Before Representative Hill passed away, he had started an effort. He chaired the Code Revision Committee, which it sounds like the most boring committee you could possibly serve on. It's my favorite one I serve on. The whole reason the committee exists is twofold. We repeal law and we fix broken law. That's a fun committee to serve on, right? So, plainly, we could get rid of all the rest of the committees. I'm good. So he put together an initiative. He sent letters out to every agency in the state. The question was really simple. Hey, what laws do you have on the books that you don't use or shouldn't be there anymore? Got back letters. We put together a 25-page repeal bill. It was the first repeal package in Georgia history. We got that passed last year. It repealed something like 150 pages of law out of Georgia's code. That's an effort I think we should be endeavoring in annually. So we've started that process again. I'm carrying another one of those repeal packages this year. Sat down with the Department of Public Services yesterday to start walking through some of the things they've got problems with. We're going to get letters sent out this week. We've got a new chairman of Code Revision, but I chair a subcommittee that's whole job is to go out and find repeal bills. So it's a fun subcommittee to chair. I love being the guy who gets to say, yeah, let's kill that. Working on that, and then the last thing that I'm working on this year that I expect to pass is sitting in Senate rules. So my friends over in the Senate, sits in Senate rules for the third year now. We've got it over there. In the state of Georgia, every local government has to hold public hearings before they pass a budget. Anybody here think that's crazy? No, it makes sense, right? Well, that is every local government unless they have anything to do with education. School boards, charter boards, any local education agency has no requirement to hold public hearings before they pass a budget. Wasn't intentional, just kind of fell through the cracks as the law was getting drawn up. So, we've got a really simple bill to go tackle that. Would require 2 public hearings before a local education agency can pass a budget. Would require they put their summary budget online. Or require a detailed line item budget available electronically on request. I actually worked with our former school board chair on that, worked with Representative Turner on that. And I've been carrying that for 3 years now. We've got it sitting in the Senate. It's actually gone through Senate Education twice now. We've passed it out of the House twice now. Got caught in Senate rules and ran out of time last year, but I've talked to both the Education chair and the rules chair again this year on the Senate side. We should be good to go. So that should be law before the end of session this year. That's another one I'm very proud of. So, guys, lots of stuff we're working on. 5 minutes is not enough to tell you, but really, really honored and proud to represent you. including those of you who don't live in the best district in the world, because you live in the best county in the world. And plainly, none of us really know where the lines are. We do because we have to go put signs up at them. But in reality, we're all representing all of you. And so if you ever need anything, please feel free to call me. We'd love to see you at the coffees on Saturday. We'd love to see you at your capital. It's fun to bring constituents down onto the floor of the People's House. We won't bother with the dark side over there, but you can go. We really would love to entertain you, and thank you guys for the opportunity to come talk to you.
Does anybody know the date crossover day?
We don't know crossover day yet. What we know so far is through day 13, which is February 1st, right? And if you'd like, on my website, I do a legislative tracker, and it's one of the few votes we've taken this year, and it's got the calendar so far. And then, as silly as it is, on my Facebook page, I create an event for every day of the legislature, too, so you just pages. Yes, if you've got any children, grandchildren, friends who are children, who are between the ages of 12 and 18, who would like to page at the Capitol meeting, come down, work on the House floor, help us do our job throughout the day. Really neat opportunity for them. We all get, in the House, I think we get 10 a year. I'm not nowhere near my 10. Senate gets probably 4 million because they're spoiled. Coloradus, we would love to have. We'd love to host them down there. Really neat opportunity for them to come learn. Great opportunity for us to get to know them.
You really want to get that out of rules?
We've got our good guys in the Senate here. Yeah, we would love to. We'd love to help with that as well. So please make sure to use all 10. What a waste if we don't use them. Thank you.
Very quickly, before we get into the Q&A portion of this, I do want to recognize somebody, and I don't know if he's sitting down or where he went. As anybody knows, running a headquarters is always going to be probably the largest expense that we can incur, at least at the party level. So there's a gentleman, he was standing back there, I don't know where he went, but his name is Bodoc, Roger Oliver. He actually runs Bodoc's down on the corner over here. It's a bar and grill. Highly recommend if you have an opportunity to go down there. The food is really good. But he has given us this space for us to use. So if you see him, he's a gentleman who walked in and out a few times, got the long beard. Please give him a note of thanks, shake his hand, and thank him for giving us this space, because we greatly appreciate it, because it means we have funds to go and do other things to help during this presidential election cycle. The last thing I wanted to say is, as we get into the Q&A session, as everybody and all the legislators here now, there is no shortage of opinions in Cherokee County, good and bad. And I'm going to ask that if you're upset, ticked off, and you're very hot on the bill, that's great. I'm glad you had that fire. But please, when you ask a question, be respectful. And if you disagree, we can disagree respectfully. So I will ask you to do that, please. And we'll begin our Q&A session. So we're not going to have any specific format to do this, but I guess if we can have people, do you have a format set in mind?
I do.
All right. Haley, I'll let Haley do it. I should know better.
I might be a little bit type A, so for those of you who don't know, I'm Haley McLeod. I'm your vice chairman of candidates and elected officials, and I'm the one who tricked all of these fine folks into coming here today. So we're going to do a Q&A, and I'm going to just keep it organized. I'm fine with just calling on you if you raise your hand and letting anyone who wants to. I don't know.
Can I ask the first question? Because I have one that I would like to know.
See, I have a question too, Rick, and I want to ask you.
Go for it. I will defer to the young lady.
So we're going to do a Q&A, and this is a great opportunity for you to just ask questions that you want to know more about. And if you don't get an opportunity to ask your question, by all means, follow up with me, and I'm happy to help you figure out which person's your representative and just make sure that they get that information and see if we can try to get you an answer. So this is going to go for about the next 20 minutes. And I did want to say that I've heard a lot of cell phones go off, and I have a personal rule that I assume that when I hear a cell phone go off, that means you want to give me $25 to donate to the party. So just as an FYI, I'm going to start calling you and see how many people want to donate to the Cherokee County party. Yes, we can.
You mentioned questions and answers. There's opportunity for comments as well.
Well, you know, there's always opportunity for comments, but with a limited amount of time, I think that might be something to better follow up with your representative personally, just because there's a lot of people here, and I know
We
there's a
take
lot
the
of things
same
going on.
amount of time for question, for comment, certainly ought to fit in.
Well, I think a lot of people have come here today, especially new members, to hear what their representatives have to say. So if you wanted to make just, you know, a personal comment about what you think, that might be something better to do in another type of forum.
So if it's not personal, you'll permit it.
Well, I'm trying to avoid commentary if at all possible, because I think I just don't think this is the appropriate forum for that. Questions are great, but if we're hearing comments, I think I'd probably prefer to hear them from the representatives who've taken time out of their day to come here and
If
speak
you
with
can
their
phrase it in the
constituents.
form of a question, let's do
Yes.
that so it becomes.
Chairperson speaks with great passion. So, just to start off the first question, and it might be to your point, Carolyn, a lot of people these days, and this is open to any of you, please feel free to jump in. A lot of people just in the general field will say, I don't feel like I'm being heard by my representatives. They don't feel heard, and I know that you're doing your very best to hear them. So in your opinion, what is the best way for these people to get in contact with you and to be heard as your constituents? What's the best format of communication for that?
So I'm going to start by answering the question in the negative. What not to do. What not to do is fill out a form on somebody else's website that sends me the same email that I got 5,000 times from somebody else.
And from all over Georgia.
Yeah. If you want to be effective, personalize your message. First and foremost, call me on my cell phone. If you, that's published in newspapers, my Facebook page, my website. I'll give it to you now if you want to write it down or put it into your phone. Or I will in a second when you all get ready to put it into your phone. That's what not to do. So I'll give you a second, turn it back on, turn the ringer off. Unintended consequences. But if you, I'll give you an example. I want to try, as your representative, to email you back to at least let you know I got it, I read this. If I get 5,000 emails on one topic that start with the same exact subject line and the first two sentences are exactly like everybody else that emailed me, I have to go to the next thing because we get a lot of emails. That's an unfortunate part of it. We don't have a lot of staff. I read all my own emails. I respond to all. I think we all do. Yeah. We don't have staff going and reading our emails and responding for us. The responses actually come from us. So if you're going to email, you can email it to the State House email address, which is public record. It's on the House website. But you can also call us on my cell phone is 678-576, and I'm not going to do the hotline bling dance. 678-576-2644. That is the one that's right here that I answer for all purposes, so I carry with me all the time. But if you're going to be communicating, I want to give an example as well. I had a constituent call me and say, my daughter got bit by a dog, and I cannot find out if that dog has rabies because the veterinarian is not allowed by law to tell me if that dog has rabies or has had a vaccination for the rabies shot. She took the time, see now who's calling me? That was not funny. You were testing me out.
Did you see him ignore that call?
Come on.
So much for responsiveness.
But I had to see the hey, aren't you supposed to reel these people in? All right.
I like freedom, Scott.
It's chaotic sometimes. It's beautiful. So she said, hey, my 4-year-old daughter got bit in the face by this dog, and they won't tell me for 10 days whether this dog has rabies or not, and they won't tell me if it has vaccination. And now my daughter, and I don't know if you're familiar with rabies treatment, but you've got to inject this really painful shot where the bite is. So this 4-year-old girl's getting a shot in her face. She doesn't even know if she needs it or not, but she's going to get it because the parent is concerned and she doesn't know. So she called me and she said, is there anything to be done? I introduced the bill. Veterinarians immediately picked up the phone and called me and said, hey, we have some concerns about your bill. I said, well, let's work it out. We worked it out. It's in committee. We're going to get a hearing for it. It's really that simple. If you call and there's something that can be done and we agree with it, we're going to take action. And you know, I don't remember what the exact bill number, I think it's 538, but it basically would say, hey, if you're bitten by a dog, you have a right to know. Your doctor can call and figure out what the vaccination history is of that dog. One of those things that I wouldn't run on that. You know, I didn't mention it earlier because it's not this big deal, but it was something where a constituent called, they had a concern, we immediately took action to try to fix the law.
If the daughter had bit the dog, it would have gotten everybody.
The other thing I would ask is that, to Scott's point, personal email, not just one of those chain emails. but also put your phone number on there, because sometimes instead of emailing back and forth, I may have a question and maybe not even fully understand what you're asking about. It's easier to just sometimes pick up the phone and let's have some dialogue real quick, and instead of doing 20 emails back and
Zip
forth.
code's helpful too, because we get
Okay.
emails from people all over Georgia. It's sometimes helpful to know this is somebody who sits in my district that I've got a direct responsibility for.
Or even in
I need to
Cherokee
get back in
County.
touch.
Or even in Cherokee County, because
Yeah.
if you'll just specify
Just some
Hale,
kind of
Canton, or
notice
Woodstock, or
that-
something,
yeah.
you know, because I get,
Got a lot of emails from
Bonaire and
seniors or
Albany,
whatever.
yeah. So,
I have a related question. How much staff do you folks have?
I will answer that, because I've probably had the best staff ever. I have one secretary who's legally blind, and I try not to utilize her services as much as possible. So, you know, sitting on 7 committees and having everything else, there is no administrative support.
That
so,
sounds like Mandy can't pick a secretary, they're assigned to us.
I do have a legislative aide that I do hire kind of temporarily while I'm in session. He's down there helping Senator McCoon as well. Sweet William is awesome, and also an avid rugby player, and he does help me out some. But other than William kind of catching some of the overflow for me, that's about it.
On the House side, we on average
So,
share a secretary with
it's-
5 or 6 other members. And their job is really just to take the phone call and let us know that someone called. During the session, most of us will bring in some kind of intern or help from a college, but you know, part of the problem there is they've never done it either, so we spend as much time teaching them what we're doing as. So it's not like Congress. We don't have a big office suite full of people. We're doing this on our own before anyone.
We're on our own. We have a secretary in the Senate between 2 senators in our suite. And then as chairman, I do get an intern from Georgia State or Georgia Tech for the 3 months we're in session, during session. But if you're not a chairman, you don't even get that. So it's, we're on our own.
And this goes back to something I mentioned earlier, though. We are the lowest cost of government of all 50 states, and we're very proud of that, something you should be proud of as well.
We have the 3rd largest legislature in the United States. Other than New Hampshire, who doesn't pay their legislators, we spend the least amount on the legislature of any state meeting. So we're not being spoiled.
I did want to answer one question, though. Actually, Representative Caldwell, before we got here, had given me a question proactively. He wanted to know why God had created senators. And that was and I told him that was an easy answer, so the representatives would have heroes.
There's the difference between God and senators. God knows he's not a senator.
Final point there. Tom Murphy was the Speaker of the House for 30-something years back when he was Democratic Speaker. There was a freshman member of the House who just joined the House of Representatives. He walks in and he sits down with the Speaker for the first time. He says, "Mr. Speaker, I'm ready to fight the enemy." The Speaker laughs a little. He says, "Okay, who is the enemy?" He says, "The Republicans." He says, "Oh, no, son. The Republicans are the opposition. The Senate's the enemy."
Well, just I'm going to say, in defense of our fine senators, is there are only 56 senators in the great state of Georgia, and there are 180 House of Representatives, and they equally have no staff. So they're getting far more emails than some of my fine friends right here who are giving them such a hard time.
They're tremendously inefficient.
So to move on to the next question, Josh? Yes. Yes, hi. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Bethany East. Some of you already know me. I was the first woman with a disability to represent the state of Georgia at Wheelchair USA. So I'm excited that I'm able to represent the state, but I've only been in the wheelchair for 4 years